Welcome to the Josilyn Drake Show. I am your host, Josilyn Drake. I'm super excited about today's guest. We're going to be coming forth with a good friend of mine out of Atlanta, Georgia, Jennifer Wilson. Jennifer has 4 beautiful children, and I have looked up to her as far as on the parenting scene. She is awesome, phenomenal. She is a super mom, and I personally call her my superhero, and later on in the show, I'll tell you why. So let's welcome to the Josilyn Drake Show, Jennifer Wilson.
Hey, Jocelyn.
Thanks, Jen, so much for agreeing to be on the show and interviewing with me in regards to parenting. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I am married to a grief and bereavement counselor. I am the primary caregiver of my 81-year-old mother, and we have 4 children, ages 23, 21, 19, and 17. I am a recent return back to the workforce mom. I was a stay-at-home mom for about 16 years, and I came back to the workforce to assist my husband in sending our children to college. And we have 3 in college right now. Our oldest son is at Clayton State University majoring in film. Then our daughter is at North Carolina A&T majoring in musical theater. And we have another son at Dartmouth College majoring in biology. And our youngest daughter is a senior at Mount Vernon Presbyterian High School in Sandy Springs.
Wow, you are awesome. You guys, you hear why I call her super mom. When I think about just the sacrifices you've made to bring forth these awesome young people, you are to be commended. Can you just kind of give us a little bit of history of, you choosing to stay at home so that you could raise your kids so that they would know you and the sacrifices in having to do so?
It was a really interesting story because I think I had 2 kids at the time, and I had lost one, and I was pregnant for the 3rd time, for the 4th time, and childcare was so expensive, and we decided for me to come home and for me to be the caregiver for the kids, and that meant that we were going to have to cut back and reduce some things because I was making a pretty decent salary at that particular time. And so that's why we came home, because we had so many children and it was costing so much money to pay someone else to care for them.
Wow. Can you imagine? I mean, you've been working, you're used to your own money, and now you're in this transition stage where now you're going to have to rely on your husband, and you have 3 kids that's also relying on that salary too. Can you talk about just some of the things that you had to go through to get yourself accustomed to living as a stay-at-home mom? Like, you couldn't go get your hair done every day or every week like you probably did before. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Jocelyn, that was probably one of the most scariest times for me because I was so used to bringing in my own cheddar, if you will. And having to come home, I wanted to come home and be with the kids, but I didn't want to come home and be with the kids because my degree was in business and finance, and some of the things that I was having to do, like, teach them how to hold a fork and a spoon, and it was just mind-boggling. I was like, oh my God, I have to teach them everything, and because I don't know, I guess I was watching too much television or something, and I just kind of thought it just happened. But all the stuff that I had to do to teach them, to get them ready for the world, was just like mind-boggling, and me having to trust the God in my husband to take care of things, and I wasn't used to doing that. I mean, it was almost like we were playing marriage before, because, it's like he's taking care of me, but, I was working, he was working, I was doing my thing, he was doing his thing. But when I came home, I heard these voices saying, okay, well, you can't do this, you have to ask permission to do that. And so an inner battle began to happen, and I had to, fight through all those temptations and the stereotypes, because if he told me, oh, no, I don't think we can buy that, I'm looking at him going like, what? Who? You talking to who? And it was just a realization, understanding that, a whole bunch of things had to change because our income was drastically reduced because we made the decision for me to come home and care for our children.
I can imagine the inner turmoil, especially when you've been an independent woman and you're a strong independent woman, and now you're having to really, for real, surrender to, your husband, because if not, he's the provider now. And so, that's just really deep. I can imagine just the different mindsets that you had to adjust just to be able to walk that out. But I'm sure that now you can see that it has paid off,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way. I was able to learn so much more about the kids. I didn't have to wait so much until things just absolutely escalated before I noticed something that was going on with one of them, because I spent so much time with them. I can tell if they had a bad day at school, if something happened, and we just developed this relationship where we could actually talk about so many things. So, that's a definite blessing.
Yeah, I can remember, of course, we all attended the same church, New Birth Missionary Church, and our husbands both worked on staff. But I can remember a speaker coming, just teaching us how to live financially successful. And one of the things that he recommended was living, especially for young people, is to, when you begin to live on one income, and how you could save. So if you lived on one income, and so I was thinking about today, of course, parents who've already out there, the household is dependent upon two incomes. That would just be almost like a ridiculous thing to ask or require. But how would you, with your children, would you suggest that if they're married and they're talking about starting a family, that they do so on one income, so that when they have children, the wife, if wanted to, could stay home with the children and raise them the way that they feel that the Lord wants them to raise them, and really be in tune with what's going on with their own children?
Of course, always, if you start off that way, it makes it a lot easier, and it's not so much as living beyond your means or below your means. It's just trying to make sure that you are prepared. And one of the things that I've tried to do with my children is, teaching them by example with like a credit card. If you purchase something using a credit card, then make sure that you can pay that off at the end of the month and not have a balance where you're constantly having to make payments to the point to where you don't even know what you're making payments on, and use it as kind of like an emergency. If something comes up, if you're in a car accident, or if some major something happens where you're going to need access to some cash, or if we have a recession, someone gets laid off, and you don't have that ideal 6 months of income stored aside, then you could use your credit card then to carry you over, and just not get in a habit of using it every day for everything and just having that long extended balance. And then that way, if something comes up and you decide that, okay, I'm going to come home as the wife and my husband, and we're going to live off of his salary, then it won't be as dramatic or traumatic to be able to make that transition. Of course, there's always going to be stuff that you have to think about. If you're going to have the sports package, if you're going to have cable at all, if you're going to reduce eating out. There are just so many different changes, and everybody has to make that decision about what they're going to cut off, because everybody has a different tolerance. And for me, I love to cook. So it was easy for me to say, okay, well, we're going to make this reduction in our food bill because I'm going to make sure that I cook. And then I started a garden in our backyard. So then, we didn't have to go and purchase as many produce because we were raising it in our backyard.
Right. So that's what I mean about Jennifer Wilson being a super mom. Jennifer is originally from Mississippi, so she know what it is to live what we call a country lifestyle, and then she moved to the city. And so what she did was kind of the things that she learned as a young girl at home with her parents, she was able to incorporate when they made the adjustment as far as her coming home. Jennifer, can you please tell us some other things that you did to kind of make sure that you all didn't go lacking, you had everything that you needed, and how some of those skill sets goes back to what you learned from your mom and, living in Mississippi?
One of the things that really comes to mind is that my mom, she had skill sets that I just wasn't aware of, because originally I was born in Robbins, Illinois, and I was there until I was 12, and then we relocated to Mississippi. But my mom had a certain skill set as far as like making jams, preserves, putting up beans, and all those kinds of things like that. And I didn't know she had that skill set until we relocated to Mississippi. So one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that my children understood all my skill sets, so if something happened, they would at least know what it looks like. And that goes back to even and looking at different programs and things like that have like financial aid, because we didn't have the income, but we didn't let the price tag on those particular things stop us from applying for financial aid. And if you're going to apply for financial aid, you need to be one of the early birds that complete the application. So we will always take advantages of those kinds of things, and that was a blessing to us, because my kids actually had an opportunity to do so many things because of the financial assistance and these different programs that's been around since the 70s. But I didn't know about it, and the internet is just a beautiful thing, because you can Google and search so many things. And that's another thing that I try to teach my kids, is use social media, use the tools that are there for your betterment. Just don't use it just for entertainment. You have to be able to utilize it so that it can work for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I know you are enjoying. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
I praise you, Lord. I bless your name, and I honor you. I worship you. I praise you, Lord. You find me blessing your name. I honor you and worship you always.
Welcome back to the Josilyn Drake Show. This portion of the show is Dear Younger Me. It's where we ask our guest a question in hopes that it will bring some type of encouragement, motivation, inspiration to our listeners. And so, Jennifer, on Dear Younger Me, today we want to ask you, what would you say to the young Jennifer, and how old would she be? All of us have in time had situations where we felt alone, we felt like we failed, we felt like we weren't good enough, just self-esteem issues. What would you say to the young Jennifer, and how old is she, so that you may encourage our listeners?
That is a seriously loaded question. I think the younger me that I would speak to would really be a range from 26 to about 34, because that was such a pivotal time in my life. Got married at 26, so I was an older newlywed. Did not start to have children until I was 32, so I was an older mom. But what I would say to myself is to relax, because I grew up very uptight, very matter-of-fact, very all about the business. And I would just speak to her and tell her to calm down, that you're loved, that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. You need to be able to accept you for who you are, and that, God had purpose for you in your life, and you'll fulfill it. You just need to stay focused on what it is that God has called you to do, and trust yourself, and trust that the things that are in your heart, that are in your spirit, that God planted there, that it was there for a reason, and it's okay. And it's okay if people don't exactly see the world the way you do, because this is your life, and you need to be able to walk that walk that God has called you to walk.
Oh, that was good. That was good. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We'll be right back.
Glory and honor, glory and honor, glory and honor, majesty. Oh, how we love you. Oh, how we love you. Oh, how we love you, majesty. Glory and honor, glory and glory and honor, glory and glory and honor, majesty. Oh, how we love, oh, how we love, oh, how we love, oh, how we love you, majesty.
Welcome back to the Josilyn Drake Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are talking to my friend Jennifer Wilson in Atlanta, Georgia. And this portion of our show is entitled Wisdom Speaks. And so, Jennifer, what we would like for you to do is just share with us a principle that you've learned throughout your life that you kind of walk out, that it may help some young person or even an adult person with how to carry out certain situations.
There are so many different things that we can do as far as older women. And one of the things that I would encourage every young bride, young mother to do is to find someone that is willing to be honest and truthful with you regarding being a wife, in particularly being a minister's wife, because that role is a very heavy road to walk. And you can't trust everybody, because everybody is not looking to make sure that the marriage stay together. And that's not just with a minister's wife. These days, you just got to be careful, period. But you want to be able to find someone that's going to love you and is going to love your husband in spite of the foolishness that we all bring to the table when we're having some issues. And you want to find somebody that's going to always direct you back to your spouse. You want to find someone who's going to correct you in love somebody that you know that is going to be able to keep your mess to themselves, somebody that can handle your mess, because everybody doesn't have the capacity to handle who you are as a person. And so you want to pick that person wisely. And when that person speaks to you and give you some truth, even if it hurts, because sometimes the truth will hurt, to take that to heart and to know that they have your best interest at heart, so that you don't have to bump your head the way I bump my head. If you just take the time to listen, and not necessarily trying to talk to you as a child, but if I went to the right and I hurt myself real bad and I'm trying to warn you, don't go to the right. Listen, take heed to that. And thank God that somebody is willing to share their hurt, their pain, their ugly with you, so that you don't have to have that same hurt and ugly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was really good. Wow. I think that's almost a difficult thing to find, though, these days. Is not impossible, but difficult. Someone that you could trust, that's going to love you and your spouse, and love you enough to not divide, but love you enough to tell you the truth and to make sure that you all stay on one accord, even with your mess.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is definitely a wonderful principle. And so it's my prayer that for you who are listening, that God will put someone in your path that you all can trust, because it is so imperative to make sure that you all continue on with your journey that God has set you on the path together, and to make sure that no one that you bring into your heart, into your space, into your marriage will bring forth division, but bring forth unity. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Lord, you are welcome in this place. Reveal your glory. Move by your spirit as we worship you in this place. Jesus, you are welcome in this place.
We praise you, we bless you, we worship, you're welcome.
In this place, we praise you,
we bless you, we worship, you're welcome.
in this place, we praise
you, we bless you, we
King
worship,
of
you're welcome.
Kings. In this place, we
praise
praise
you, we bless you, we worship, you're welcome.
and we bow
down before you,
King of
bow
glory.
down before you.
In this place, Lord, we bow.
Down before you,
You are the King.
down before you,
Lord, we bow.
down before you.
We praise you. We worship you in this place. You're the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. You're worthy. So we praise you right now in this place. Lord, we praise. And we bow before you. 'Cause you're the King of glory. In this place, na na
a minister. He's a man of God, and his role is pastoral care, and he's always dealing with people with their family issues, their grieving issues. And I mean, this man is anointed to do that. There are rare people that I've seen that's able to handle the way Tony has, and he's done this for 23 years. But my question to Jennifer is, how have you stayed with the same man for 29 years?
Oh my God, it is just Jesus. Do you hear me? Just Jesus. There have been some times in our relationship where I was like, okay, you know what? I don't have to deal with this. I can do better than this. You getting on my nerve. But God and my girlfriends who calm me down and say, you know what you're thinking, I understand what you're saying, but really, Jennifer, you need to calm down. You really need to calm down. All right, let's go ahead. Let's start looking at what it is that he's doing and what it is that you're looking for, and let's compare. How bad is it really? And that's all that's required. If you get somebody who's going to be real with you and start sharing with you and start reminding you about what some other folk are having to deal with and what's really going down and what's really out there, you might want to pull it back and say, you know what, it's okay. It's really not that bad. And the biggest thing is that when I had the revelation that he had to deal with my foolishness just like I had to deal with his, my whole paradigm shifted. Because for some reason I was just thinking, I have to deal with this man, and, he's not doing A, B, and C. And it just dawned on me one day, he got to deal with you too, girlfriend. And you are a total vacation. You are not even a road trip. So calm down.
Oh, that was good. I love it. I love it. So to all of you out there in Radio Land who I know that first year you're like, oh my God, who have I married? This man has tricked me. This woman has tricked me. I don't know who this is. Take it for somebody that has stayed in it for 29 years. You will have those days where you just want to say, hey, I don't have to. And the truth is you don't. But I mean, if you want to really say that you have done something, you have a legacy, and to really build a life with the same person as the Lord so desires, then yeah, you do want to pull it back, as Miss Jennifer Wilson has told us, and say, hey, I may be dealing with it, but that person has to deal with me too.
In your presence I find glory.
And we're back. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Josilyn Drake Show. We are here today with my guest, Miss Jennifer Wilson out of Atlanta, and she is sharing with us some tips on parenting. And I'm hoping that you're really enjoying this as much as I'm enjoying talking with her. And so, Jennifer, we're going to go get back into our interview. And one of the questions I have is, tell us some joys of raising your children.
Oh, wow. When at that moment when you see that they actually get it, and it's something, I have this saying, it's like you do what you need to do, what you're supposed to do, and then you have a greater opportunity of doing what you want to do. And when I see them actually handling that component of their life, it just brings me joy to be able to help them to get to that next level of giving them some things that it is that they want to have. And my kids are the ones that actually coined that phrase, because I used to say, do what you need to do, and then you can do what you want to do. And they're like, Mom, that's not true, because you don't let us do what we want to do either. We just have a better chance of doing what we want to do. So, even in that lesson, I've learned so much from them in being their mom. They've helped me to be able to say, I'm sorry, and I was wrong for this, that, or the other. And that's the kind of thing that just brings joy to my heart, seeing them become the man and the woman of God that I know that God intended them to be. That just warms my heart.
Awesome. And I know with raising 4 children, and actually Gabby was almost like not a surprise, but a surprise because of the age differences with the other children. What has been some challenges in raising your kids?
Because I started off trying to treat everybody the same. And that was a terrible, terrible mistake, because everybody is an individual. Everybody has a different need. And with me trying to make sure that I gave everybody the exact same, that actually caused more issues than was warranted. But the good thing about creating something messed up, since you're the creator of it, you can turn that thing around. Mm-hmm. And so, I was able to change that around and say, you know what, I messed up. I can't give everybody the same thing because everybody requires something different. But what I'm going to do is to give you what I believe that God is telling me that you need. And we were able to kind of turn that thing around. But if I can say anything to any young parent, don't try to give them the exact thing, because, they're taking pieces of, we have 4. All 4 of them are totally different from each other, because they're just taking bits and pieces from each one of us and making a whole different combination of a person, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's also important that we help our children to understand that it doesn't mean that we love the other one better than we do the other, because they each see us doing different things for them. And sometimes, children's ability to really comprehend truth is kind of, their perspective sometimes is off. It's not that we're loving the other one more than we do the other one. We just recognize that they need something different than the other one does. And I had to deal with that with my own children. I would hear them say, well, you love the other one more than you do me, because you allow them to do this, that, and the other. And I had to really explain to them that wasn't the case, is that you don't need that from me, but the other one does,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really good. So your husband, Tony, as we mentioned earlier, you and Tony have been married for 29 years, and Tony has a very demanding job. Very demanding. He's always, for the most part, working, because when you're in ministry, sometimes you can't tell a person when to die. You can't, those things happen, and they may happen, 2:00 in the morning. He has to get up and leave his family to go and tend to members of the congregation. And so I know that there are times where you felt as though you were a single mom, and you had to operate like that, like a single mom, almost, although you were married. And so there are so many women out there who have husbands who have very demanding jobs that require their attention. It's not that they don't love their families, and sometimes it can be, you can think that, but that's not the case. because they're always having to be at work. What would you say to a young woman who may be in that position? Her husband has a very demanding role, and she's just there with the children and feeling alone and like, I have nobody to help me, and so she's frustrated with that. How can you kind of encourage her to that, she got it, she has everything she needs within her to be able to walk this out?
One of the things that I would encourage any mom, wife, to do is not to allow it to become a source of contention. A lot of us do have careers prior to saying I do, and when you come home, and particularly, you're walking away from what you went to school for, and the world sometimes makes you feel as if you're less than, number one. They'll go like, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom. Oh, you have time to do this, that, and the other, and because I have to work. And one of the things that I quickly realized was when I was working and paying someone to take care of my kids, they had a job. So when I decided to come home myself, I needed to see that as a job as well, not that I was coming home to sit down on the couch and eat bonbons. So, you have to do a lot of self-encouragement and self-check. If you have some girlfriends, which I was blessed to do, a lot of us, for some reason, decided to come home around, we started having kids around the same time. So I had that connectivity to talk to people and to have adult conversation, while the kids were having their play dates. I still had that adult conversation. But one of the things that you really have to realize is like, what is it within me where I can make this thing work for me? Number one, you have to talk to your husband. You have to talk to your man. And if you're the kind of woman that needs some additional time, some additional space, and it's reasonable, you need to let him know that that's what you require and that's what you need. Don't necessarily listen and take heed to what everybody else is telling you. You need to make some things happen for you within your own walls and to see what you guys are willing to do to have a compromise, because that's what marriage is about. It's a give and a take. And sometimes, you give more, and sometimes he'll give more. But you really have to work on it. We have principles that we can follow, but when you actually put it into action, you have to see what it is that works. People would tell me, well, you need to keep the kids away from him when he first gets home, because he's been away at work all day. And, you need to give him a moment before you come in. And, my moment was about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, I needed a break because I needed to get off work, because what, he was coming home, he might have drove around, took the long route home, or maybe that's what he needed to do before he came home, because I was at work too 24/7 and I needed a break too. But that was something that he and I had to work out, because I don't know what the other wives were doing, but I needed for somebody to come grab one of those babies, because I was having them back to back to back, and everybody needed something. So you need to make sure that you're not, number one, not being unreasonable. And we can be unreasonable, especially when we're suffering from sleep deprivation. But that's where that good girlfriend comes in. That's where that mentor comes in. And maybe sometimes you can get someone to come in and give you a little break that's other than your husband. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think something you spoke to was so key is the village that you've surrounded yourself with. Can you just kind of hit on that point again, the importance of having girlfriends and mentors and, asking help from family members to kind of help you walk through that journey?
I can remember one time in particularly, it was my birthday. And, usually around your birthday, people try to do some things for you. And I remember my sisters took me out. My biological sisters, they live here, and they took me out for my birthday. And we were sitting around the table, and they were like, we really didn't know what to get you. And I said, you know what you guys can really do for me is maybe come get these kids maybe one weekend every 2 or 3 months so that I can get a break, because I'm tired. That right there will bless me if you could just get them. I don't need no gift. I don't need this dinner, because right now I am tired even at the dinner. But I came out because, I didn't want you to think that I was not appreciative. So we have to learn how to speak up and let our village, whoever that is, know what it is that we require and that we're in need of, and make yourself go out there, because my village changed over the years, because before they started school, I didn't have the school village, but I went out because I had the library village where I met those same moms that were out there. We brought our kids to the library for that book read or that playtime or whatever it was, and we developed something where we start to share with each other and help each other out. And I mean, even if we were just whining and we had that wine party, we just felt so much better after we finished, after we got it out. We knew nothing was going to change, but we just needed to get it up and out, because as women, we're receivers, and we need to be able to get it up off of us so that we can think clearly, because if we hold it in, it just starts to brew.
Yeah, that's good. That's real good. The village is very important. And something else you said about the fact that it changes, because your needs change over time, and just, keeping that in mind as well. But earlier in the show, I called you my superhero, and I told the listening audience that I would tell them why you would talk about that. In 2000, I was carrying my baby, and I lost her 7 months into that pregnancy. And I didn't have friends in Atlanta. We had moved there in 98. And I didn't have any friends, although we went to a church that, had about 30,000 members. Because your husband works at the church, you're basically with the children, so it's really hard to develop relationships. But Jennifer is one person that I had actually developed a relationship with, and enough to trust. And so when I lost my child, my family, I had no family there in Atlanta. It was the most difficult thing I've ever gone through. But because I had a friend named Jennifer Wilson, I was able to walk through that place. And I wanted to personally say thank you for helping me through the most difficult time in my life. I know I would not have been able to walk that through had it not been for you. I mean, audience, I could not go view her body. I couldn't. Jennifer walked me through the entire process. She went with me to pick out clothes. She went and took the clothes to the funeral home. She did, everything. She and her husband, Tony, everything except for everything that they could possibly do by law. They did it for my husband and myself, and I am eternally grateful to you for that. I'm eternally grateful to you for being a friend. And I know that, Jennifer mentioned earlier how she had lost a child, and if it had not been for her going through what she had gone through, she would not have been able to walk me through. And so I want to encourage someone today, just for a moment, that you may not understand why you're going through what you're going through, but you're going through for a reason. And there will be someone that will come in your path that you'll be able to help go through, and because of your life and because of what you learned in your process, you will help someone to be able to keep on keeping on in the faith of the Lord. And so, Jennifer, I wanted to thank you so much for that, you and Tony. So do you have any last words that you would like to share with us, to parents? Because, today, some people call children baggage. Sometimes the children are considered burdens. Sometimes it takes a negative connotation to have children these days. So much so where people just say, I'm having one, I'm not having any more, or I may give you two, and that's it. There was a time when people were having 20 kids, but today, it's a burden. But the Word of God says that our children are blessings. So can you, as we close this interview, kind of tell us, encourage us that our children are blessings?
Amen. I do want to say thank you for allowing me to minister to you in your time of need, because that was a difficult time. I know, and it was really, really hard. And you blessed me because you went through it with grace. And a lot of times when we go through stuff, we want to act out and act crazy, and you didn't. You did it with grace, and I believe God honored your ability to go through that time, because he knew that was the way you were going to have to go, and I think you blessed them. I believe that children are just a floodlight to already existing problems. So when people say that children are a burden. I believe that they were already dealing with some things that they either swept under the rug, they refused to look at, and children have an uncanny way of making you face your own demons. And as a parent, we just need to realize that, we don't always get it right all the time. We need to stay in touch with God. We need to watch our children, pay attention so that we can see signs of behavior changes. We need to be willing to seek professional help, professional counseling, if that's what's required. And we need to allow them to be kids and not let them grow up too fast. And finally, we need to know that money isn't everything. I remember we used to give our kids Monopoly money during the week, and they would save it up just for doing kind things. And then on a Friday night, we would turn our house into the Wilson Theater, and they would have to pay to get into the theater. They would have to pay for the popcorn and the nachos that we made, and we would just watch a VHS tape that night, and they get to choose which movie that they want to see. And those are kind of like the lasting memories that they'll remember, just making their childhood fun, because we didn't have a lot of money. So, you don't have to have the big fancy car. You don't have to have the big fancy house. You don't have to be the most popular person in the neighborhood, but you can be successful with your children if you just take time just to love on them and be creative with the different things. I mean, for Christmas, I have this little blue reindeer that I hide throughout the house. And I'll put $5 on it, $1 on it. I'll put, little pieces of candy on there. And they tear the house up today looking for that reindeer. Mm-hmm. And they're 23, 21, 19, and 17. And they still look forward to doing that. So, we could just keep it simple and just love on your kids and have that accountability partner. You don't have to have a lot of them, one or two, and you're going to be fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. I wanted to give an update on my guest, Jennifer Wilson. After the interview, I received a text from her letting me know that her younger daughter, Gabby, who's a senior now in high school, received a full scholarship to Elon University. And I just wanted to also just take this time out to say congratulations to Jennifer, Tony, and Gabby and the Wilson family on this great opportunity. My listening audience, I hope something we've said today has encouraged you to love on your children. I hope that something we've said will help you in your journey so that you can be successful. I hope that something we've said has encouraged and motivated you in a place where you felt down and you just felt like giving up, that what you've heard today will encourage you to keep on keeping on so that you can raise beautiful, whole, healthy children for the world, for the society, and for the kingdom. Be blessed, and we'll talk with you again on next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Josilyn Drake Show. Thanks for watching. The Josilyn Drake Show never stops. The conversation continues on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us, like us, and be a part of the conversation. Also, tune in on Thursdays at 5 p.m. to XL Radio and listen to the Josilyn Drake Radio Show. Until next time, enjoy life. See you next week on the Josilyn Drake Show. Get Josilyn's new single from her upcoming sophomore album, In This Place, on iTunes and all digital outlets. Log on to jocelyndrake.com and get your Dear Younger Me apparel.